Hello and welcome to NAACP Perspectives, where we showcase and highlight successes and achievements in the Johnstown African American community. I'm your host, Ron Fisher, and today I'd like to welcome to the show Miss Harried Gaston. Harried, thanks for joining us today.
Thank you. I'm glad I could make it.
I know it was a long journey and the snow tried to stop you, but we got you here today.
Yes.
Well, with it being Black History Month, I wanted to take the show just a step further from the traditional show. Again, this is still a platform, but what we're doing this time is I'm looking to educate our audience on Black history. And not just because of the month, but because, recently I've been in conversations with some of the youth, both Black and white, and a lot of the time I'm finding that they're not aware of Black history, or they're not being taught Black history. And it's upsetting to me because mainly because Black history is U.S. history.
Correct.
Correct. And I think it was Marcus Garvey who said, people who don't know of their history or past is like a tree without roots. And that's so true. How do you know where you're going if you don't know where you've been, right?
Indeed.
So again, thanks for joining us today.
Glad.
And if you don't mind, tell us a little bit about yourself and your journey.
Okay. Well, I'm originally from Charlotte, North Carolina, and I've been in the Altoona area and worked at Penn State Altoona for 22 years. Actually, it'll be 23 come May of this year. I work with, for the most part, first and second year college students who are exploring majors.
Okay.
And coming here, I wasn't aware of the African American history in this part of the country.
Mm-hmm.
Growing up, my father was involved in the sit-ins. I was involved in desegregation. I was one of those kids who were bused to help integrate the schools.
Okay.
So for me, it was personal. The
Mm-hmm.
history was personal. So coming here and being able to be exposed to what exists here, it's definitely been eye-opening, and I'm hoping to, with the technology and the resources of a place like Penn State, to be able to share that and keep it going for
Mm-hmm.
future generations.
Yeah, that's great, because it is our job to educate the youth. I mean, we can point the finger at them and say, well, you should know, but unless we're telling them the stories, they're not going to know.
Correct.
So there's definitely a little disconnect there, but we have to do a great job, and I think you're doing a great job on what you do to educate the youth.
Thank you. I appreciate that.
Not a problem at all. So you've been with Penn State, you said, about 23 years?
Almost 23 years.
And how's everything going that way?
Very good, enjoyable. It's nice working with students and watching the, as I like to say, that light come on and
Mm-hmm.
get excited about what their calling will be, and help them find that. So
that's good. That's great. So you said you took it a little personally.
Well, yeah, the history of being involved in desegregation for me was personal.
Mm-hmm.
So you got the history books, of course, but I came to realize I was living part of that history. And that's one of the things I try to encourage people that I'm working with, and I see as we do the festival and other outreach activities, is that everyone has history.
Mm-hmm.
Everyone has
Mm-hmm.
history. So people who are saying, you don't want to hear what I've been through, or nothing special happened to me, I'm of the mindset, nah. Nah, you are special, and what you have done, and where your people came from, and how did they get here, and what circumstances they were dealing with, and the person was dealing with, that's history.
It is, and the history is what brought you to this day, right?
Yeah, indeed.
And people forget that from time to time.
Yes, indeed.
And what's fascinating is when you take the time to actually look back into your own family history, the things and the stories that come about.
Indeed. Yes. So that, if nothing else, you need to start there.
Yeah.
Just interviewing grandma, grandpa, the aunts, uncles, cousins, whoever. And you never know. You find out these wonderful tidbits and things like, oh, is that who that person's named for? I didn't know.
Yeah, and so the little stuff like that excites me, you know, but not everybody is the same. You know, I was the kind of guy, I think it was like 6th or 7th grade, I remember writing to Johnstown School District that we need to have Black history in schools, and I was very hyper in 6th and 7th grade. There's probably other ways, different avenues I could have taken, but I felt that it was important to educate, you know, the youth on something that wasn't just Black history, it's U.S. history.
Right, right.
So tell us about Penn State-Altoona and what kind of some of the great things that's happening out that way.
Okay. Well, we are one of the Commonwealth campuses of Penn State. So the majority of first and second year students will start away from the University Park campus, the large campus that oftentimes people will use the word main. And but at Penn State, the way the system is set up, you can start at a number of campuses. It's one application, so you're not requesting to transfer to another place.
Okay.
So we provide the first 2 years of the 160 odd majors that can be completed at the University Park campus, but also students may decide that based upon their background, their abilities, their values, their interests, it works better for them to be at a smaller institution, in a classroom of 25, 35, maybe 45 people, and as we like to say, the diploma says the Pennsylvania State University. So we do have a number of students. We have about 4,000 students at Penn State-Altoona. About 1/3 of them will stay and complete their degree. And it's the liberal arts, it's business, it's engineering, it's the sciences. So we do provide about approximately, we're almost up to 25, but I'm thinking it's closer to 19 majors that students can earn at Penn State-Altoona, and then go on off wherever they so desire. We do have students who come to us locally. Part of the mission of Penn State is to service the local communities. So Altoona, Penn State-Altoona is responsible for Bedford, Blair, Cambria, Somerset, Huntington County. So that's our main mission, but we do have students who come to us from D.C., New York, New Jersey, Pittsburgh, who decide that, again, it may be for a smaller campus. They've been to University Park. They've seen the 40,000 students, and for them, that's not going to work. Yeah,
it can be overwhelming at times.
It can be overwhelming, yeah, definitely. So, but they're interested in having that quality faculty, an opportunity to interact with students. Again, I forgot international students. We've got international students as well. So just to have that chance to interact and have the resources of Penn State available to them. So
I would say faculty to student ratio is definitely important.
Indeed.
You know, the lower the number,
the more likely you're going to be able to find them.
Now, you had mentioned approximately 4,000 students go to Penn State-Altoona.
Correct.
Now, what would you say, if you know off the top, the number or the percentage of African American students at the school?
It's probably around 6 to 8% of that number. We've been very fortunate in our overall student of color is probably about 12%. So Asians and Hispanics and Native Americans making up the rest of that group. So the student of color and African Americans, we're probably about, as I said, 6 to 8% of that group.
So now you brought some items here. Talk to us a little bit, or talk to the audience about what kind of activities are geared toward the African American, not only the student, but the outside population.
Okay. I was drafted, as I like to say.
I've used that word a few times too.
And being in the Altoona Railroad, it is probably the best term. I became chair of the group called African American Heritage Project of Blair County. The organization's been in existence since 1992. I joined 1994 and was drafted as president in 1997, and every once in a while I'll ask, anybody else interested? And nobody says, yeah, me. Nobody volunteers for that.
They got the right person. They can't fill your shoes, right?
Right. The project, the African American Heritage Project, came into existence from the vision of about two people. There were more than that, but two people. One person was the curator, Cummings McNett. He was the curator of the Altoona Railroaders Memorial Museum, and the other gentleman was Reverend Paul Johnson, who calls Altoona home and has been a community activist there. They wanted to gather the stories of people who, for the most part, came to Altoona because of the Great Migration, the 1917, 1918, 1920, on off, because the railroads and other industries of that time needed people, and they sent ministers and other prominent people down to the South to say to those who were sharecropping, come on up. It's much better, money-wise, and the racism isn't as bad as you're facing here. You're not, you can make a living. So bring you and your people on up. So they were aware that you had folks from Mississippi and Alabama and Florida and Georgia and North Carolina and Virginia who came and moved into places like Altoona and Johnstown and Philadelphia and Pittsburgh and Chicago and so forth. So the Pennsylvania Railroad, which for a long time its headquarters was in Altoona.
Oh, okay.
Wanted to do that, so they utilized, as I said, ministers that lived there. Go down, get them on these. They don't have to worry about transportation. We'll put them on a boxcar and bring them on up. So they wanted to grab those stories of those people and again, back to Grandma and Grandpa. What was it like for them to come here to this area? What did they do when they weren't working? What kind of jobs could they get?
Yeah.
What activities were they involved in? Sports, entertainment, clubs, and other activities. So they begin that process of recording people to talk about where would the porters live when they got off the train, because you didn't have the hotel.
Yeah.
Even though, yes, it was better up here than down in the South, you still had a lot of, unfortunately, prejudicial attitudes, and no, you can't be in this part of this particular company. So you would have entrepreneur-minded people saying, the porters come here, you can, for $10 or $5 or whatever the price might have been at the time, you can spend the night. Another entrepreneur-minded person, you can eat here. Another entrepreneur-minded person will cut your hair.
Yeah, okay, I got it.
So you get those businesses out of things like that.
Yeah.
If you can't deal with, if one person's need isn't being met, how can I meet that? So they wanted those type of stories, and begin that process of doing that and gathering that. And the Railroaders Museum was going to be that place to house it and display it. As a way to promote the gathering of that, in 1993, William Leitner, who had joined the project at that point, came up with the idea of the festival, of hosting a festival and utilizing that entertainment and outreach to the community to continue to gather those stories. As Reverend Paul Johnson points out, it's been proven every time I do some type of presentation, African American history is known by more than African Americans. So you do have European Americans who say, oh, I've got a picture of something, or I have a copy of let me make a copy of a book here, or let me share a story with you. And from that, so if you get folks together talking, it was seen, this is a way to do that.
Okay.
So the first festival was held in 1994 in Altoona at a place called Garfield Park, which is located in historically the African American community of Fifth Ward. One of the entertainers that came and played, Dr. Jerry Zoltan, teaches at Penn State Altoona, and the park it's big, it's nice, but it was hot, and it was in August.
Dog days, huh?
So where do you people sit? Having a place for shade and so forth. That was an issue. So Dr. Zoltan took it upon himself to ask the campus executive officer of that time, Dr. Alan Metters, let's have it at Penn State Altoona. The CEO of the campus thought it was a great recruiting tool. That's what he saw it as a way to have something for the students who did not call Altoona home, who came to see, oh, this is a place that is welcoming and accepting of what I bring here. So it moved the next year to Penn State Altoona and has been there ever since.
That's good.
So we've been very fortunate for this particular campus to provide us with a number of amenities that no way we could pay for in order to do this. And yes, it's beautiful. Beautiful trees, nice place to sit for picnicking. It's kind of interesting, the campus itself has been seen as it was a park.
Oh, really?
Way back in 1930s. So it kind of keeps that
same
feeling,
yeah.
When people come to it. So so we've been there, as I said, ever since. As I said, I got involved in 1994 thereafter because I went to the Garfield Park event, the festival at Garfield Park, opened up my big mouth and said, we can do better. And someone said, I want you.
That's how it goes.
So, okay. As I said, got involved that way. And as I said, with the project and the festival, that the knowledge and information and the sharing of it, hopefully, would continue. Our brochures, for example, our programs, always had in it something about, did you know? So we would be putting in things about folks and their history of the community in it as a way to share. Our first festival, we actually had a deposed king of Rwanda come. He lived in Clearfield, Pennsylvania.
Okay.
As they were putting together the festival, Reverend Paul Johnson was able to find out that information, made the effort to have him come down. The gentleman is over 7 feet tall. So quite a presence there.
I'd say,
there. So it was one of those little tidbits there that, did you know we had a king here? We also pointed out other people who have done well. Dr. John Harris, who's involved he's a dean of education at Kentucky University, called Altoona home. So we, again, highlighting that information. And the goal, really the focus was with the railroad, the Great Migration issues there. I think in 1999, a member of my church, I belong to a United Methodist Church, approached me and said, and she was into genealogy. So she's a volunteer at the Genealogical Society for Blair County. She said, I found something, now I've got to show it to you. And what she found was a tax record for property, and it listed two two Negroes as slaves. And the tax records were dated back to 1789.
That's interesting.
So growing up in the South, the idea of slavery for me was like, oh yeah, I'm familiar with that. But I wasn't thinking here in this area that slavery would occur. So it began that process of going like, well, African Americans have been in this area at least since then, if maybe not even earlier, depending. And I've been blessed to have the resources of Penn State. So their library, their databases, that along with the Genealogical Society and the volunteers there, when they became aware of what I was interested in, would often send me copies of things that they would find. So that information has been continued to be gathered. I've now been able to actually engage a couple of the faculty at Penn State-Altoona to help with teaching undergraduate students to help me scan it, put it into a searchable database, so that, as I say, I know that I'm not going to be here forever. So as I move off the scene, someone else, again, it's there. Someone else, and I do get phone calls from people who grew up in this area, who, as they're doing the research on their family, they're like, my people lived in Altoona, my people lived in Johnstown, my people lived in Tyrone, my people lived in State College. What brought them there? So you get those phone calls, and you try to help and find as much as possible, if possible. So it's been quite interesting.
That's good. No, it sounds interesting and intriguing. So how's the turnout been for the past few years?
We probably have averaged around, I would say around 1,000.
1,000?
Yes. We're all volunteers.
Okay.
We were with the Railroaders Museum up until about 2001. Unfortunately, maybe 2002. Unfortunately, due to some finances issues that were going on at the Railroaders Museum, they had to say, we cannot be that support for you. And so for a while there, up until probably about a year ago, we've kind of been on our own. Last year we were able to get reconnected back to the Community Foundation, Central Pennsylvania Community Foundation. Okay. So when people are giving donations, if they so desire, they can write out that check to them and get that tax write-off. Yes. And that was one of the issues. Again, as I said, we're all volunteers. So oftentimes people are like, well, why can't you do this? Why can't you do that? And I'm like, I still got a job. I got to pay bills. So, and I have a son. So those little things in that life kind of intrude into that. So we've had that opportunity to work together. There's probably about 8 of us that are solid, and then they're about, we can count on probably about 6 to 8 more to help out with the day of the festival, for example. As I said, about 1,000. Yes, our hope would be that our marketing budget would grow, that we can get it into the TV ads and the travel brochures and so forth, and oftentimes people do find us. Yeah. We are again fortunate. Penn State-Altoona supports us with a website. So if people go to altoona.psu.edu /AAHP, our website is up. We will update it with pictures of past festivals. We will update it with special events. My contact information is in there.
That's good. That's good. So you brought some stuff with you today. I know
Oh, yes.
what I like about these shows is we start rolling next, the show's already over. So before the show's over, I want to make sure we get to some of the stuff that you brought here with you today. And again, before we do get too late into the show, when is this year's festival going to take place?
This year's festival will take place Saturday, July 27th. It's the fourth Saturday in July. The reason it's picked on there now, we were doing it when the college kids came. The calendar got changed, and then we had to go back to something that's historical. The fourth Friday in July is a gathering of people from across the area: Johnstown, Cumberland, Bedford, Cumberland, Maryland, Bedford, Huntington, Altoona, Tyrone, of a picnic. So when get back to those activities, how do they entertain themselves and so forth? Well, picnicking was big around here, and so the churches would reward the kids for their attendance and their knowledge, and they call it the Sunday school picnic. That it still has that title when you talk to people, but it's become much more of a reunion, a family reunion. So people get together who haven't seen each other, cousins and aunts and uncles and so forth. And they're there Friday at Del Grosso's in Tipton, Pennsylvania. And then there was like, Saturday, what do we do? And it was like, oh, we put the festival there. And so
that was smart thinking. That was.
So we as I said, we get about 1,000 people so that come.
That's good. Well, I wish you much success with that this year, and I'm going to try to get my way out there now that I'm educated on it and know a little bit more about it. But let's share with some of the items you brought with us today.
Okay, let me go here. As I said, one of the things we want to do. Whoops. One of the things we want to do is make history personal. So we ask people to share with us pictures of their get-togethers, their family, and so forth. Now, some of these you can probably hear. Whoops. For example, that's Alice Lawrence. And she's involved with the local NAACP here, and she's also helps us out quite a bit with the festival. I'm trying to think of other folks. Up here is Mr. Nathan Manuel. He was the president of the NAACP. And then we have other photographs here. Down here, a photograph from one of the local cemeteries, a gentleman who fought in World War I. So folks have photographs, and they keep them in their albums. And what we ask is, please make a copy. And please share it with us. And here, this is last year's poster. It is on the website. So if you go if you go to altoona.psu.edu,
there we go,
/AAHP, you'll see pictures and this poster of last year and sponsors and activities. We try to do things for children, along with those who are young at heart. The music ranges from jazz to gospel to funk, R&B, and whatnot. We do ask for donations to help deal with the cost of the festival, and so we're very grateful for those who have helped us out.
That's good. Well, again, I wish you much success with this year's festival, and we'll have to get you back on again. I definitely enjoyed you coming in. I really appreciate you making it through the snow today to sit down with me.
Yes, it's nice. It's interesting to know that Pennsylvania has four season weather.
If you think so, I think it's just winter and spring, but that's just my opinion.
It is indeed 4-season weather around here.
Well, thanks again for joining us. I want to tell our audience to be sure to tune in for future broadcasts of our NAACP Perspectives TV show Thursdays at 7 p.m. on Atlantic Broadband's Channel 9. And I'm your host, Ron Fisher, thanking our guest, Ms. Harried Gaston, to join us today. And be sure to contact us at NAACP Johnstown, P.O. Box 1064, Johnstown, PA 15907. Email naacpjohnstown@gmail.com. Phone 814-535-6937. And be sure to find us on Facebook. Again, I'm your host, Ron Fisher, inviting you to see us next time. And I'll see you then.